I am Pastor Nathaniel, and I am actually sitting here in my front yard today. So I'm going to be bringing the message from my front yard. I was in my backyard on one message. I was up in the mountains on one message. And today I'm actually sitting out in the front of my house in my front yard, getting ready to bring you the message for today. You know, we're going through some of the toughest times we've ever gone through in our modern memory of the United States, dealing with this virus. It's been real interesting, but I am also in the middle of a series, and I've not changed the series since God has spoken it, called The Plagues of Egypt. And today we're dealing with a particular plague where God told Moses to tell Pharaoh that he was going to kill all of the livestock of the Egyptians, but the livestock of the children of Israel would be fine.
Then the Lord said to Moses, "Go in to Pharaoh and tell him, 'This is what the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, says. Let my people go, that they may serve me. For if you refuse to let them go and hold them still, behold, the Lord's hand is on your livestock which are in the field, on the horses, on the donkeys, on the camels, on the herds, and on the flocks, with a very grievous pestilence. The Lord will make a distinction between the livestock of Israel and the livestock of Egypt, and nothing shall die of all that belongs to the children of Israel.' The Lord appointed a set time, saying, 'Tomorrow the Lord shall do this thing in the land.' The Lord did that thing on the next day, and all the livestock of Egypt died. But of the livestock of the children of Israel, not one died. Pharaoh sent, and behold, there was not so much as one of the livestock of the Israelites dead. But the heart of Pharaoh was stubborn, and he didn't let the people go." You're listening to The Bible Speaker from thebiblespeaker.com.
Now, I want you to first of all understand what is meant by livestock when you're talking about biblical times. In biblical times, just like it is in many of the non-industrialized countries of the world today, livestock was really their money. In the Old Testament, the oldest book of the Bible is the book of Job. And it's not the first book, but it's the oldest book according to scholars in the Bible. And the Bible opens up with the book of Job as it begins to talk about Job's wealth, that he was the greatest man in that land, and how he had so many cattle and so many donkeys and so many sheep. All of his wealth was fundamentally based on livestock. They didn't mention any gold or silver or any dollars or money. All of his wealth was basically accounted for with livestock. Now see, it's called livestock when we're talking about animals, but today's market of actually what's taking the biggest hit with this virus is called the what market? The what market? The stock market, exactly. So see, the livestock is now the equivalent of the stock. And when you go to some countries, I travel all over the world, and when you go to non-industrialized countries, when you go travel in some of these rural places, what you find is their wealth is really measured by how many sheep they have, how many cows they have, how many donkeys they have, and often you'll see a person and they travel with their wealth. You'll see a young boy walking down the street, and he's got this big old flock of animals that represents his family's wealth. And when you travel around the world, you see these kinds of things, and it's just like it was in the Bible. So when God said he was going to kill the Egyptians' livestock, what he really was saying to the Egyptians, I'm going to kill your stock market. I am going to take all of your animals, all of your cows, all of your sheep, all of your donkeys, all of your horses, all of your livestock, and I'm going to kill them. But I will not touch the livestock of the children of Israel. You know, the last message was entitled No Flies in Goshen, and it was when God separated the plagues that went on everybody, and he just put the plagues on the children of Egypt and not the children of Israel. So we had a separation beginning with the flies, and it continued. So the next plague was on the livestock, or the stock, or the financial aspects of the people. Now, what we're seeing with this virus right now, we have seen a tremendous, the largest drop in history of the stock market. So the first thing that happened when the plague hit, the stock market crashed, and trillions of dollars was lost in this stock market. We're seeing businesses, and my estimate is that 15 to 20% of businesses will not survive this, because right now we're moving into the, beyond a month of everything being shut down, and I think it's going to continue for a good while. And even when they do open back up, it's going to be a slow open up, and it's just a lot of businesses will not survive this. A lot of people are going to go bankrupt because of this, because the stock has been affected. The money has been affected. But I want to give you a different angle on this, even though I know for so many of us it will affect our money. The government is bailing out or helping. It's the people are getting stimulus checks, and they're getting, the money that's going to come from the government. The businesses are being able to get money that will be forgiven or emergency loans. So the government is doing a whole lot to help. But I want you to understand, the government even has a very limited supply of money. And to be honest, I'm not sure where they're going to get all this money from. The first stimulus package is $2 trillion. $2 trillion is over half of the annual federal total budget. The total budget of the United States federal is about $3.8 trillion. So when you're talking about giving out a $2 trillion stimulus package, you're talking about giving out over 6 months of your income. And they say it's going to have to do a second round and maybe even a third round. They say this thing might get up to a total of $6 trillion. $6 trillion, that's 6,000 billion. In other words, that's 18 months of the U.S. government's total budget. I don't know where they're going to get that money from. So when the plague has hit America, it's not just hit us in terms of sickness. It has hit the livestock or the living stock or the stock market. It has hit business. It has hit finance. It has hit both personal and corporate assets. It's hit us in the pocketbook something serious, but it did not touch the people who were in the land of Goshen. It did not touch the children of Israel. It did not affect their finances. Now this is the point I want you to understand with this money, because even with Christians, not only is it affecting Christians, it's affecting the house of God, the literal house of God. Churches' incomes will plummet. And my estimation is just as it's going to be 15 to 20% of businesses that will not survive this, it's probably going to be 15 or 20% of churches that will not survive this. Because what happens in a pandemic or a plague, this virus, they're saying that it's killing those who are already weak or who have underlying conditions. Well, that's exactly what it is doing economically. If your business is already weak and got underlying other conditions, yeah, this thing is taking a serious toll. For those who don't have the recommended amount of money saved up, and they, check to check, and that's most people in America, to be perfectly honest about it, it's a real issue. Yeah, the money that's coming in the stimulus package will help, but it's not going to carry you very far, to be honest with you. This stuff doesn't open back up real soon. So the problem is, those who are not strong to start with, when the plague hits, it's taking out those physically and financially who are not strong, who've got underlying conditions already. But I want you to have a little bit different understanding about this plague, and about the fact that this plague is, without question, affecting money and finances. So the point I want to make is this. This is what you have to understand. All of the livestock, at that point, it was still related to one thing. Even though it was stock, even though it was resources, even though it was your source of wealth and material abundance, it was still all food. That's why Paul said, look, having ye food and raiment, be ye content. Having ye food and raiment, be ye content. So when we've got that, and we understand there's some certain things, see, this is the beauty. And sometimes you have to be cognizant of the beautiful part of it. And there's a motorcycle. My next door neighbor has a motorcycle, so I told you I was out in the front yard. But anyway, he just cranked up his motorcycle. You can hear it in the background, but still, I'm not to stop you. The point is this: even though this plague is going to take a lot of people's money down, even though this plague is going to put a lot of people in financial distress, it's going to put a lot of companies in financial distress, hardly anybody is going to go hungry. Hardly anyone is going to go hungry. Having ye food and raiment. Nobody is going to go hungry, or at least very, very few. No one is going to go hungry, and no one is going to go without clothing. Now, you may go without some of your other luxury stuff. Absolutely, you might do that. You may not be able to make a car note. So if you can't make a car note, you're going to have to do like what most of the other world has to do. They have to catch public transportation. It's not like we don't have a good public transportation system. You just won't be able to drive your car if you lose your car. You might not be able to pay your house note. And if you can't pay your house note, you might have to move in with Annie or Mommy or somebody. You might have to move in with somebody. You might have to do something that you're not comfortable doing right now. But the point is this: Paul said, having ye food and raiment, be ye content. When you watch the news, none of that is going to tell you about how blessed you are to eat. Now, what they got to tell you is you can't go and sit down and eat in the restaurant. You have to carry it out. Duh. You have to carry it out. Didn't say you can't get your food. The grocery stores are all open. They got plenty of food. And you can buy the food. But you cannot sit down in a restaurant and eat. So you're inconvenienced, but you're not hungry. So even sometimes, even in the midst of stuff, if we have the mind of Christ, if we understand the words of Christ, you know, Jesus told his disciples, look, don't even take a purse. Don't take a wallet. Don't take any money with you. Don't take but one coat, one pair of shoes. Don't take an extra anything. Don't take any money. Wherever you go, you depend on the people to feed you and to house you and to take care of you wherever you go. You know how tough that is? I was out of the country. I was actually in Nigeria. I had just spoken at a church there, and I was getting ready to come back from Nigeria, and I was having a hard time getting back. None of my credit cards at the time would work in Nigeria because you had to have a credit card with a chip in it. And at the time I was there, none of my cards had a chip in it, so I couldn't get any money. I was in bad shape. I was flying on a companion pass. When I flew over there, I couldn't get back on the companion pass. There was plenty of room on the plane, but the people had a lot of luggage, so the plane was overloaded. I couldn't get on the plane. I couldn't buy a ticket because they would not accept a credit card from Nigeria. I had to get my wife back in America to buy my ticket, send my ticket to Nigeria so I could get back home. But the thing about it is this: I'm in the airport. A guy had taken me around. He'd taken me to the church. He was driving me around, and got to the airport. I hear God speak. I want you to give this guy all of your money.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
I'm saying, I said, Lord, I don't have that much money left. Credit cards don't work over here, so none of my credit is worth a quarter. I don't have that much money left. God said, give him all your money. So what I did, I went in my wallet. I probably had, I don't know, maybe $100. I took $80 out and gave him the $80. And then I hear God speak again. I told you to give him all your money. Here I am in Nigeria. I'm in the airport, and I'm hearing God tell me to give this man all my money. Can't go to the ATM and get any more money out. And I've got to fly from Nigeria all the way back to Atlanta, and I'm hearing God say, give this man all your money. And I'm saying, well, look, supposed something happen. Suppose I need some money. And I was trying to keep at least $20 of the money out. Just $20. God says, all your money. So I ended up, I gave the man every single dollar that I had. There was nothing left in my wallet. And I was thinking to myself, this is how the disciples must have felt. They had to go on faith, and they couldn't take any money with them. They just had to go on faith. And they just had to go places in foreign lands in another city with no money, with nothing in their wallet, with not even nothing in their wallet. Jesus told them, don't even take a wallet. So Do you know what kind of faith that takes to travel with no money whatsoever? And then I'm in the airport, I'm in line, it's this long line going through the security, and somehow one of the guards there recognized the guide or me or something, and the guard came up and he said, look, I'm chief of security here at the airport. He said, I will take you and I will get you through security and you don't have to stand in this long old line. I appreciate it. I said, but no, you don't understand. Because a lot of times they're looking for tips. And the minute they do something for you, their hand is out, they want a tip. I didn't have any tip money because I had absolutely no money whatsoever. I said, I appreciate it. I appreciate you trying to help me, but look, I have no money. He said, oh no, that's okay. I said, you don't understand. I don't mean I don't have a whole lot of money to tip you. I have no money. And the man was just insistent. He took me from the back of this long security line, walked me right up past the guard, and he said, he was chief of security. He said, don't worry about it, you ain't got to check this. He walked me straight on through and said, now go. He'd asked for no money. And I saw immediately how when you are obedient to God, even with no money, favor opens up for you. And see, some of you right now, you're going to go through some hard financial times with this stuff. There's just no question about it. But you're not going to be hungry. You're going to have plenty of food. You're going to have a place to stay. You're going to be comfortable. You're just not going to be able to sit down in a fancy restaurant. So you're going to be comfortable. You're going to have food and raiment. You're going to have plenty for your personal needs. But your 401k may go to pot. Your job may be in jeopardy. Your business may be in jeopardy. You may go through some things, but you've got to understand the truth about money. And yes, it does help when you got a whole lot of money. It helps because to be honest about it, it becomes your security. And the more money you have, the less you psychologically have to depend upon God. See, when I was in that airport with absolutely no money, I was totally dependent on God. When that man came up and wanted to take me to the front of the line, I was totally dependent. But I saw how it's better to have God's grace. It's better to have God's blessing than a billion. And I understood that. And that's kind of what you're going to need to understand with this. Yes, there will be some financial tension. There will be some appearance of financial loss. But when you're walking with God, He's not going to let you go hungry. See everything that Jesus said, when he says, don't worry, he says, don't you see the lilies of the field and how God takes care of them? And he's not going to let a sparrow fall to earth without my Father's will. So when you understand these things, but Jesus really, he wasn't talking about all these luxury stuff. He was talking about necessities. And he said, don't worry about what you shall eat or what you shall drink. That was food. Don't worry about what you're going to eat, what you're going to drink. Matter of fact, this plague, it didn't even have folk worried about what they were going to eat or what they were going to drink. They had them buying toilet paper. I don't even want to get into that. I don't even want to get into the kind of mentality that had folk focusing on the wrong end of things. And that's the way the devil will get you. The devil will have you focusing on the wrong end of things. I've never been hungry due to lack, but I have been hungry due to some long fast. My longest fast was a 14-day water-only fast. I did 7 days of just raw fruits and vegetables, and I did 14 days of water. That was hungry. So I've gone through hunger, and because of that, and I've done multiple fasts. I've done 42 multiple times at do42.com. So I've learned how to appreciate food and just the value of what you have when you've got food and when you're no longer hungry. And that's going to be a blessing. And I believe everybody, even though we're dealing with this plague, you're not going to be hungry. You're not going to be starving. You will still have food, and you will still have raiment, and you will have something to drink. Water is probably the best thing for you anyway. You're still going to have all those things. We are under right now a plague in this country, and the plague is taking forms of not just physical illness. It's destroying the livestock, the stock market, the wealth of many of those who had money saved. The businesses are just going to go under. All kind of stuff is going to happen. But you're not going to go hungry. You are not going to go hungry. And when you can learn to just appreciate that fact, it changes some things within your world. So people, I understand that, yeah, you know, it's going to be some tough times coming up. I know that. There's no question about that. But it's some beautiful times too. I'm looking at just the beauty of this nature, and I say that each time because the last few sermons I've done actually out in God's creation. I'm leaning up against this tree, and you need to be like a tree planted by the rivers, that's strong and can stand even in the midst of adversity. When you're like that, you can stand through anything. And I just fully believe that, and I think it's going to come out fine. Now, some people are not going to come out fine, but a lot of this stuff has to do with your mindset and your spirit, and whether you're truly listening to the words of Jesus. Jesus didn't tell you, look, he didn't say you had to have all this stuff. And I remember arguing with God about that one. I said, food and raiment. I said, Lord, what about a house? I was asking that question. I said, what about a house? Yeah, I understand the food and the raiment, but what about a house? You know what God answered me? He says, did my son have a house? The Bible says, you know, foxes have holes, birds have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. So, based on Jesus, no. You don't even need a house, especially with this beautiful weather. But it's a mindset. And the world has us right now where we feel we need all of this stuff. That we can't be happy without all of this stuff. And people, it just ain't so. I've traveled all over the world, and I've been to countries where the people have nothing or little of nothing in terms of a whole lot of material abundance, but I can tell you without question, they are happier than all of the folk with all this stuff in America. And anybody who's traveled all over the world will tell you that. They'll tell you that when you go to places, as long as the people are not hungry, I mean physically hungry, as long as they have enough to eat, the vast majority of the time, the people are happier than the folk with all of this stuff in all of the wealthy countries, because sometimes we think we just can't make it if we don't have all of this stuff. And most of the time, see, even with this stock market crash, let me tell you something. Let me just get real. If you worry because your stock went down, you in good shape. You understand what I mean? If you got stock to start with, and you got all this money in the stock market, and you got stock to start with, you are way more blessed than 95% of the folk if you got a big stock portfolio. Do you want... A bug just was flying around, man. Let me put that bug in your ear. If you got stock, you're way blessed. Back in the Great Depression, when the stock market crashed and people lost millions of dollars and they jumping out of the window, a lot of them folk were still millionaires. They still had plenty of money. They just lost most of it. And they still had more money than 95% of the folk. And even if they didn't, they had the brain and the ability to start over and build it up again. See, sometimes people, this stuff is a mentality, and that's what you got to understand. You can look at this thing as a plague, and you can look at all of the stuff that is the inconvenience that is costing you. You know, I can't go to the movies, I can't go to the ball game, I can't go sit down at the restaurant. What can you do? Sometimes this thing will make it a point where now you can go and sit out under the tree. See, I'm not violating any state law now. I'm out in my front yard sitting under a tree. When the last time you sat under a tree and just sat out in nature and just took a deep breath and enjoyed God's creation instead of sitting in front of the TV looking at all the man's mess? When is the last time you just been out in nature? See, stop focusing on what you don't have, what you can't do, what you are missing, and focus on what you got, what you can do. Sometimes a plague is one of the best things in the world to bring you into opportunity and to open your eyes where you can really see what is. It's often a big, big blessing. So people, I tell you right now, yes, and this message is simply called the curse of the stock. The curse of the stock. Killed the livestock of all the Egyptians, but did not bother the stock of the children of Israel. Now see, one thing about the children of Israel, they didn't have a whole lot of stock. The Egyptians were the one that had all the money, had all the gold. children of Israel didn't have that much to lose. See, some of you right now listening to me right now, you ain't in the part of the folk that's got the millions and the billions. You ain't got a whole lot of stock. But you can have a whole lot of joy. And you can have more joy, more peace than the billionaires. Because that's not based on money. It's only based on sufficiency. And as long as you got sufficiency, I know God told me anything beyond sufficiency is insignificant. It took me a long time to understand that. But I understand that now. You got enough. And you got plenty. And in a lot of cases, you got too much. Curse of the stock. And sometimes the loss of that stock can be the best thing in the world for some folk. God's got us, people. He really, really does. I feel good even in the midst of this plague. Wow! I feel good. Because I see God's hand in the midst of all of it. And regardless of what happens, it's just like I've had a chance, and the first time I've ever been out and delivered sermons out in nature. Oh, that's just beautiful. I find I don't worry about what happens. I make the best of what happens, regardless. It's the way I've always lived my life. I can't change it. We can't, meet in the church. I can't change that. So if you can't change it, stop worrying about it. You ain't heard me complain one bit about that. I'm enjoying it. Look, I enjoy being there in the church with you, but if I can't be there in the church with you, I'm going to enjoy where I am. Pastor ain't going to be sitting here talking about, oh my goodness, I just hate I can't be in it. Not me. I'm going to enjoy and get out where I see. Birds just, that's my amen corner right now. Yeah, listen. Amen. Amen. That's my amen corner in the middle of God's creation. So people, enjoy the plague. It's the curse of the stock. But God's got your stock covered. He really does. And I think we're going to be just fine because we are the children of Israel and we are God's chosen. I believe it. I believe we'll be protected. And even when all this is lifted, if we still don't have the mindset, we'll still be stuck in Egypt. This is Pastor Nathaniel with Brothers of the Word. You can go to brothersoftheword.com. You can go to Facebook. You can go to YouTube in the Brothers of the Word channel. And you can listen to this message or send it to a friend immediately. It's immediately on Facebook. It's immediately on Brothers of the Word YouTube channel. And it's immediately on brothersoftheword.com. Just click most recent. And you can click video. You can watch it all over. Send it to a friend. Also, remember to give money, handle your tithes and your offerings. What we're going to do at each service, bow your heads for 10 seconds and ask God, what shall you give? 10 seconds. Amen, amen. This is Pastor Nathaniel with Brothers of the Word. Thank you for joining us today at Brothers of the Word because, brother, you need the Word. From Brothers of the Word.